First of all, what happens is your body controls the mind. Your body tells your mind to shut down. And when you shut down, you lose the day. The edge is not going to the edge to say, I'm average, I'm good. I'm good for the day. We got enough elite players, they should be dragging guys to be elite. It doesn't stop being average. It begins to be elite when you can cross the line. Today is that kind of day. You can feel it. You can sense it. The guy said, my body is sore. My mind is hurting. So I'm going to shut down today. We got a chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to think it's a free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said, jump. You said, how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take him with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program. It's a bad word. Not in this program. I can name some programs that are average. I'm not the Ohio State University.
The word around the WHAC. We are going to talk about that. The Woody Hayes Athletic Center is what the WHAC stands for any of you outsiders out there. I am Colin Bashnagel, your host. The only shows that I'm going to be wearing this Ohio State gear, and I'll specifically wear it, is for these Wednesdays. We are going to start where we're going to talk about Ohio State every single Wednesday. And we're going to focus on what I know best when it comes to a program. But for those of you that are showing up here first, I cover college football nationally. I don't just focus on Ohio State, but I can dedicate a day to tell you guys everything that I hear from Ohio State. And that's what we're going to do on Wednesdays. So either you could skip Wednesdays or, and what I would recommend for you non-Buckeye fans, listen to it and you might hear something about Ohio State, because though I'm a huge Buckeye fan, I like to think I'm pretty honest about what's going on. I ask that you guys comment. I also ask that you like and certainly subscribe. If you go over to TikTok, I'm very interactive on there. Bash the CFB show on TikTok is where you can find me. Look it up because we got some big things going on over there. A lot of draft prep stuff is going on right now behind the scenes. And that's really what I've been working on during my hiatus off of YouTube. That and just getting things figured out in life, considering the fact that I do work a full-time job, but yet we're still trying to make our dreams come true. I do live stream these on Twitch, bash_CFB. If you do not want to wait, not a whole lot of people go over to Twitch right now, but in the future, somewhat distant, but in a few months, the plan is to get back to streaming video games. We're talking Madden and specifically the NCAA game that's going to come out. We're going to get back to that because I had a whole lot of fun doing it. It's definitely going to be completely different stylistically than what it used to be, but it's still coming back. And finally, you can come over to X or Twitter. You can follow me at @bash_CFB. Without further ado, we have a couple of things to talk about. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is in with Bill O'Brien, out with Corey Dennis. Now, Corey Dennis wasn't officially fired until later on in the week, and we saw that probably a couple of days ago by now that Corey Dennis was going to be no longer at Ohio. Now, what ended up happening with Corey Dennis is pretty simple. They needed somebody for play calling duties, and Corey Dennis wasn't adding as much value as all the other guys that are staying on staff, such as like a Keenan Bailey, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, or a Justin Fry on the offensive line, or certainly a Brian Hartline. And you had to bring in an offensive coordinator, and that's what Ryan Day wanted to do, is bring in an offensive coordinator. How much responsibility will be given to Bill O'Brien? Well, a lot of people have a lot of criticism for his red zone play calling specifically, but for his play calling in general. But I think when you mesh these two heads together, one that has been a longtime NFL vet and has done great things with quarterbacks, and the one who is one of the best play callers in college football, I think that play calling responsibilities is going to be a rather mute point on Saturdays because I think it will essentially be on autopilot. Now, you definitely don't know. You got to see that come out into fruition. I definitely expect for the plan to be Bill O'Brien calling plays going forward, but he's going to get feedback from a former play caller in Justin Fry, from a guy who's trying to learn play calling in Brian Hartline, and a guy in Ryan Day who clearly knows how to call plays. Now, Ryan Day wants to take less responsibility. And that's what this is about. See, this could be a perfect marriage. It certainly does not feel to me like it's going to be a disaster. And you could talk about the transfer portal and stuff like that, which I'm going to delve more deeply into next week when we're going to specifically talk about the impactful players that Ohio State has on their roster next week and what that is going to look like going into next year. But for now, we're just talking about this coaching staff. And the dynamics with the coaching staff is this. Brian Hartline is still fine because he has the co-OC title. He doesn't necessarily care about play calling that much. He just wants something on his resume. His eventual goal is to be a head coach at the NFL level. He has made that very clear. A lot of people around the Woody know that. And a lot of people around the media in Ohio State space knows that Brian Hartline wants to be an NFL head coach someday. You got to add things to the resume, and I think that's all he really cares about. He's making a lot of money, and he has something added to his resume. Bill O'Brien and Brian Hartline, they both have egos. They might butt heads, but overall, this isn't a marriage that cannot work out when it comes to the coaching staff, a team that cannot work out. But it also is a lot of guys who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of pride and a lot of egos. Brian Hartline, Justin Fry, Ryan Day, and Bill O'Brien all have egos. Now, out with Corey Dennis is very interesting because Corey Dennis obviously is the son-in-law of former head coach Urban Meyer. And I don't think that's the only reason Corey Dennis had the job. I think it was too big of a job for him. And they're going to kind of use him as a scapegoat in part because of the fact that this quarterback position didn't work out. But I think the biggest reason why they're moving on is just to be able to have a change of scenery. Bill O'Brien has produced when it comes to quarterback, specifically in college. You can talk about his 2 years at Alabama. He had Bryce Young. And you could give a lot of credit to Bryce Young, but he did win a Heisman Trophy. He, I thought, was a better player in his second year. But then if you don't want to give him credit for Bryce Young, you just go back to his Penn State days. When Penn State was going through rough, tumultuous times with the Jerry Sandusky and Joe Paterno issue that they had going on, Bill O'Brien was the guy that stepped in. And the quarterback was Matt McGloin. McGloin was very poor in the final years of Joe Pa and in this transition. And guess what he did with 1 year of Matt McGloin? Well, they went 8-4 in 2000, and I believe that was 2012. And they had a quarterback basically double his production from the year prior, specifically in yards and touchdowns. Matt McGloin was a much better quarterback in his senior year than he had been. Well, okay, he's got older, whatever. Then you look at Christian Hackenberg, comes in as a freshman, produces immediately. And what happens? Bill O'Brien leaves for the Texans job in 2014, and Christian Hackenberg falls off a cliff. Because keep in mind, when Christian Hackenberg started as a freshman at Penn State, a lot of people were like, well, this guy's going to end up in the NFL. He's going to be a draft pick. It's going to be – he didn't do anything. He really did not do anything. So Bill O'Brien, he got the best out of all three of the quarterbacks that he has had in college at these major jobs, Penn State and Alabama. So the fact that he got the most out of them makes me very curious to see what happens, whether it's Devin Brown or Will Howard or whoever ends up winning the reins at the quarterback position for Ohio State. I think they're going to be a pretty good version of themselves. And I think that's something Corey Dennis might not be experienced enough to bring out. I think Corey Dennis is a great coach. I hope he does well. There's a lot of rumors that he might be sticking around anyway in a more of an analyst role. I don't know what exactly is going to happen, but Bill O'Brien, I think at the very least, is a pretty good hire that has a lot of upside, and I don't think it's really going to ruin the offense. But more staff changes happened. A long maligned special teams coordinator around Columbus, Parker Fleming, is finally out the door. And this has been one that's been called for a couple of years now, basically since the Rose Bowl. And you saw special teams not be great in the Rose Bowl. It wasn't great last year, other than a couple of blocked punts. And in 2023, it was a disaster down the stretch. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, Jesse Mirko was terrible in the bowl game. They didn't get any sort of return game whatsoever. Didn't get any pressure on any punts. it's a disaster. Special teams is a lot of mistakes as well when it comes to punt, whether it's the fake punt in your own territory in one game, or it's like you call a fake punt going back to last year, you call a fake punt, not everybody gets the memo. You have a fake punt, it works, but you have 12 guys on the field, and that's probably what tipped off Kirby Smart, is because something looked weird. It was just, it was an interesting situation with the special teams. But who's going to take over those duties? Well, I don't think you need a special teams coordinator. It's going to be somebody like Keenan Bailey, but the issue with Keenan Bailey is he has never done this. He's never ran special teams. This is definitely something that Ryan Day needs to take Bill O'Brien, that hire, and give some of his responsibility on offense away and apply it to special teams and defense. But frankly, defense doesn't necessarily need it with how Jim Knowles has been running that ship. There you go. I also didn't mention this, and we're going to talk about this before we move on to the roster. Keenan Bailey is probably going to be the special teams coordinator. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a more experienced guy, though, like Matt Guerrieri, who Ohio State ended up hiring, or Guerrieri, I think it's Guerrieri, who Ohio State ends up hiring in place of Perry Eliano. They get rid of Perry Eliano. They still land Caleb Downs. Thank you, Tim Walton, for saving that job. But they basically hired him because Jim Knowles wanted him the first time around when he got hired. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll let you pick up your guy. I'll let you go with Luke Fickell's guy, Perry Eliano, to come in with Tim Walton. And the marriage between, I'm using marriage a lot, marriage between Jim Knowles and Tim Walton clearly worked. And I'm not saying Perry Eliano did not gel with that. I think Perry Eliano is a fantastic football coach. But Matt Guerrieri is Jim Knowles' guy. That's the bottom line. It's Jim Knowles' guy. So that hire might be an experienced guy who played an analyst role in 2021. He might be, or actually in 2022, rather, pardon me, when Jim Knowles got to town. He might be a guy that maybe dips his toe into special teams. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. It's either going to be Guerrieri or it's going to be Keenan Bailey, who replaces Parker Fleming. I thought that replacement was interesting, but again, they did it because Guerrieri is Jim Knowles' guy, and he proved that he could do it at Indiana. All right, the final thing we're going to talk about in this word around the WHAC, I'm still getting used to it. We're going to talk about all the Buckeyes coming back. And we're going to go position by position, essentially, of guys who easily could have declared for the NFL draft or was close to out of eligibility and would have, frankly, gotten drafted. We're going to start with the running back position, TreVeyon Henderson. When you add in Quinshon Judkins to the mix, TreVeyon coming back, it didn't seem like a surprise the way that people were leaving, but then you add Quinshon Judkins, and it's like, wait, hold on. What's going on here? Is Trey actually coming back? They are. They want to split carries, or he is, rather. They want to split carries with one another, Judkins and Henderson. And at the end of the day, I don't blame him. Like, it's a situation where TreVeyon can help his draft stock and stay healthy through the course of the season, and which is a big part of helping his draft stock. And it's a chance for Quinshon Judkins, who already has a draft stock, to kind of share or save a little bit of tread on his tires for the next level. So I think it's great that we do get this duo and TreVeyon staying, not as surprising as some of these others. Emeka Egbuka staying was also not a surprise. Listen, he talked about this last year, and it was his first year dealing with injury, and it significantly hurt his draft stock. In a loaded year for wide receivers, when you have a situation where you're not putting up production in part because of injury, in part because of bad quarterback play, don't want to do that right here, okay? Emeka Egbuka coming back was not a shock to me at all. It's everybody said that he should come back, and I think Emeka got that guidance, and Emeka was very quick to be like, yeah, I agree, I should come back. So he does. G. Scott Jr., by the way, coming back. I don't necessarily think he would have been drafted, so him coming back's less of a surprise, but this one's the biggest surprise to me. I thought he was gone like the wind. Donovan Jackson is coming back, trying to make a case to be one of the best interior offensive linemen in next year's draft. And I think this fourth year of development will be very good for him. There were a lot of moments where he wasn't great this season, but he was still overall the best offensive lineman for the Ohio State Buckeyes in 2023. So the fact that he's coming back, 4 of the 5 guys on the offensive line are coming back, that gives you a lot of upside from a really good player in Donovan Jackson to go with a starting 4 now coming back that we didn't really expect to see. We thought we were going to have to replace 2 interior guys instead of just 1. And now with the add of Seth McLaughlin in the portal, who's clearly going to play guard, it adds a whole lot of depth. There's competition with some younger guys on the outside with tackle. Like, the offensive line might take a massive jump. And I know I did watch the Cotton Bowl. For any of you guys, non-Buckeye fans or Buckeye fans out there, did you watch the Cotton Bowl? I did. I did see it. Matthew Jones and Enoch Vamahi are not going to be starting next year. They both started in that game. Carson Insman should be a better player. I think that Josh Fryer is going to get beat out by Luke Montgomery, and if he doesn't, he's a much better player as a result of that competition that Luke Montgomery and, frankly, George Fitzpatrick pushes him for, because those guys are getting better. These guys are going to develop, and if Josh Fryer is able to hold off those other couple of guys, then so be it. Josh Simmons showed a tremendous amount of improvement from game 1 to last game, even against Missouri. And he didn't play great against Missouri, but certainly against Michigan, he played well. Like, this offensive line is going to be pretty good next year. And I think that's something that we definitely cannot overlook. As we go to the defensive side, you return basically a starting defensive line. Now, I know we lost Michael Hall Jr., but with that being said, Ty Hamilton was a starting caliber player at the end of the day. And you're bringing back Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams in the middle with Jack Sawyer and JTT on the outside. Now, Jack Sawyer had an amazing Cotton Bowl. I was a little bit worried that would, make him think that he could possibly go. Nope. He's like, I want to parlay off of that, and I want to be one of the best. I want to be a first rounder. That's basically what Jack said. And JT is not a first rounder either. And I think JT wants to be a first rounder too. The motivation for this front 4 is tremendous, especially those edge rushers. And you have guys like Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson still hanging around, who's going to give a little bit of a push. And Joshua Mickens, by the way, somebody to watch out for. And then in the middle, like Hero Canoe is definitely going to push for some playing time as well. So where the defensive line is, it might not be as deep as it usually is, with recruiting kind of being at a lull the last couple of years. But I love where this defensive line is from, at the very least, a starting standpoint. Now we're going to talk about Cody Simon. I don't know how he would have been able to enter the draft, so I'm going to briefly gloss over this. But this definitely helps the depth. We're going to talk about the possibility of Sonny Styles playing a little bit of linebacker at the will position a little bit later, but it gives a little bit of time to Gabe Powers, who I always thought was going to be a little bit of a later bloomer, just, being a little bit more personal to the situation. Don't know the kid personally, but I know of the kid in a very personal manner. I know a lot of people that know the kid personally because he's from the same hometown as me. He's just a lot younger than me. And then also you have a situation where CJ Hicks, there's pressure on him now to really take that final step to become a starting player. He's got the athleticism. He's got all the ability. That's well documented. But is he going to be ready to go next fall? Is he going to be ready to be a starting linebacker at Ohio State? Because he hasn't been, clearly. So anybody calling for CJ Hicks, it is basically time to go to work, shut up, and just let the kid show you what he can do on Saturdays. That's what Buckeye fans need to be focused on when it comes to CJ Hicks, because now you have depth and you have options. And who knows, maybe Gabe Powers jumps a guy like CJ Hicks. I don't know. But the depth at linebacker would have been tremendously hurt if Cody Simon would have moved on. He played great last year. I thought at times I was thinking he should probably play instead of Steele. And certainly at the end of the year when Eichenberg was hurt, he should have played for Eichenberg in the Michigan game. I really am liking that what I see from Cody Simon, and I'm excited for next year for him. Then we talk about that secondary, man. This secondary was already going to be great. Like, if you take out Lathan Ransom, especially with the addition of Caleb Downs, but if you take out Lathan Ransom, Denzel Burke, and Jordan Hancock, that's still a really good secondary. because Jordan Matthews, when he played, was a stud. And then you have Cal Simpson-Hunt, who physically looks the part. And Davison Igbinosun is, of course, locked down on the outside. And I want to air this out real quick. You have those guys coming back, and you got so much depth in the secondary now. You have Caleb Downs coming in, who's clearly going to start day one because he's that much of a freak. Davison Igbinosun is over here, and these Buckeye fans are acting like he's going to get benched. They're going to move Jordan Hancock to the outside. Now, look, could he possibly end up on the sideline a little bit more and not play as much outside? Or maybe does he play a little bit of nickel, kind of going back to his freshman days at Ole Miss? Maybe. But I think Igbinosun, with how physical he is and how much of a dog he is, like, you're going to see the same starting three corners. You're going to have Jordan Hancock in the nickel, and you're going to have the outside corners being Burke and Igbinosun. Now, as far as Jermaine Matthews, he's going to rotate in there, and I hope quite a bit, because that kid's also a stud, and he can play. He could rotate in for Iggy, for all I care, pretty decently often. But Iggy is a guy on the outside, and I really like how he played. He got better throughout the season. He's super physical. He's just a dog. Yeah, he gave up some plays, but he's the type of guy you don't really want to challenge. And in the safety position, it was already going to be loaded, but bringing back Latham Ransom was just kind of the icing on the cake when it comes to the safety position. He is so good, Latham Ransom, and he just has had a situation where he's been held back by injuries, specifically this year, right? Don't put him in man-to-man. That's but if he's playing in the box, if he's stopping the run, he does a great job of that. I'm really excited for what Ohio State has to offer to the table this upcoming season. This Ohio State team is definitely well deserving of all the hype that they're getting. And we're going to see how it all plays back. I'll see you guys next Wednesday for the World.